The hydraulic cylinder for the power steering on my 322 has been bleeding hydraulic fluid ever since the day I got it. Lucky for me, the one on my 318 parts tractor looks to be in great shape. So I'm going to try it out on my 322 and I'll bring you along so I can show you how to replace the cylinder. But it rained earlier this morning, so the first thing I got to do is get this thing to some higher ground. And here we are on drier land, so I'm going to get this whole assembly soaked down with some penetrating oil here. I'm sure most of this stuff is pretty much rusted solid, so I'm going to soak it down and go take the one off the 322, and then we'll come back to this tractor and get this one taken off. The first thing I got to do is remove the side cover, and I'm going to also slide the seat pan back, which is pretty easy to do. You just remove the 4 nuts and then you can just pick it up and lift it back a little bit. That'll just give me a little bit better access to the fasteners that I need to take off on this power steering cylinder. All right, I don't want to take the hoses off yet, but I do want to break them loose just to make sure that they come loose while everything is still solid. So hopefully these come off pretty easy. This is an 11/16 inch wrench. Oh, okay, yeah, they came off really nice, so hopefully this one will be the same. Oh yeah. So those line fittings came off really nice. So now we can go ahead and get the mounting bolts off. I feel so old school with my air impact. Should really get into the modern times and get a cordless. But this is a 15/16 for the bolt and the nut. To get the impact on the front one, we'll have to turn the wheel a little bit. Now I can access it. Now I can get that bolt out of there. Helps if you take the tension off of that. Bolt comes right out. Then if you turn the wheel as if you were turning right, it'll pull that cylinder back in and then just drop right out. But I'm going to go remove the one from the parts tractor before we get all the lines disconnected. I don't know how much fluid's going to come out of these. So just in case, I want to have the new one ready to go right on before I take those lines off. All right, same steps to get this one off, except these are a 7/8 on this one, but I believe the threaded part is the same size. Hopefully it shows the O-rings for these being the same part number, so hoping they're the same. If not, we can just swap the hoses out. I'm getting pretty lucky with these being loose. All right, I'm gonna throw a pan under here. I think I can straighten this wheel out now. And then we can take these fittings off. And then pull that remaining bolt off, and the cylinder should just slide out of there. Just try not to blast fluid all over yourself. I'm actually gonna push on the cylinder to get some of that old fluid out of there. There we go. I just want to make sure I don't get in too much for contaminated fluid into the 322. And I would suggest wearing gloves for this because this is pretty messy. The joint on this end is a little bit dry, so I'm just going to go ahead and just put a little bit of grease inside here. Just going to be kind of messy right now. I'll clean it up, but it's more important that this joint gets some good grease on it before it goes back together. Because for some reason this end isn't greasable. Unfortunately, the grease zerk is missing from this end, but I should be able to thread one in there. But this one is not greasable, so we're just gonna go ahead and grease it up the best we can while it's out here. You can kind of feel as you spin it, there's still some areas that are grabbing just a little bit. I know that this end doesn't move quite as much as the other end, so it's not as crucial, but still want it to be smooth through all of its motion. It's still hanging up just a little bit. It's feeling a lot better. So that should be all ready to go in. This fitting is not coming loose anymore, so I think I actually have to take the hose off and be able to spin the whole fitting. So hopefully this hose comes off just as easy. Yeah, it came right off. And then hopefully we'll just be able to spin this fitting off all the way. Yep, this fitting is threaded, so should remove that one second, but that's all right. We'll go ahead and take this one off now. And let that one drain all over the place. But we can, remove the cylinder now. And now I'm gonna go ahead and just clean all this area up while the cylinder's out of here, but you don't need to watch me clean. So I'll bring you back when I'm ready to put the cylinder back in. I got that area all cleaned up, but there is one thing I wanted to show you before I get that cylinder in. If your steering feels a little bit sloppy, it could just be that your axle stop isn't adjusted correctly like mine is here. So this is just a lock nut. So you loosen that and then you can spin this out to tighten it up against that. Obviously it's got a pivot, so you don't want it too tight, but getting it closer to that plate right there makes it so your axle doesn't have that slop in it. I would show you how it adjusts, but mine is locked up super tight right now, so I think I'm gonna have to jack up the tractor to get a longer wrench on there and hopefully be able to break it loose. But I just wanted to show you that if yours is not locked up like mine, that's a quick adjustment for getting your steering to be a little bit tighter. Now back to getting the cylinder in here. Get this front part lined up and then adjust it so the back fits in there. Got my bolt cleaned up and coated with anti-seize. Wiggle this around until it lines up and drops in. Just get the nut started for now. And then we can get this lined up with the hole. Get that bolt in there. Get that nut started. And of course, you're going to want to replace the O-ring on the fitting. And the part number for that is R26448. I will put a link in the description to pick these up, or they will also be available at your local John Deere dealer. And I just use a pick tool to hook on and get that old O-ring off of there. And then just slip the new one right on there. And then I'll probably just take some fresh hydraulic oil and just put a thin coat on there to help it seal. And then that can just thread on there. And then you just want to get it positioned to the right angle to get the hose on there and then tighten the lock nut. And this is a flared fitting, so you just got to make sure that that connecting area is free of any debris and it should not leak. And then to prevent damage to the hose and fitting while you're tightening, just hold onto the hose with a 5/8. and then tighten that nice and snug. And now we can take the old O-ring off of the front hose. Maybe. Install that new O-ring that I already coated with fresh hydraulic oil. And then I like to get it as far as I can by hand, make sure that you're not cross-threading anything, and give it a tighten. And of course, we don't want to go just hammering on this thing. We want to just make sure it's nice and snug. So we don't want to damage that O-ring by over-tightening. I do not like tightening things with impact, so I do it the old-fashioned way, which is the wrench and a ratchet. I should probably look to see if there's a torque spec for this, but I'm guessing it's just tight. Gonna get an extension for this stud. Now that everything's connected and tightened back down, I've got my seat pan back in place because now we need to start up the tractor and just rotate the wheels back and forth just to get fluid pumping into that cylinder. Since we drained all the fluid out of it, there's going to be a massive pocket of air right there. And I think it might also be helpful to run the hydraulics for the blade too, just to make sure we get all the air out of the system. And also check for leaks while you're turning the steering wheel. Check it at the lines and at the cylinder shaft. Make sure that you don't have any fluid spraying out anywhere. And now whether you put a new cylinder on or you replaced it with a used one like I did here, you don't know what may have gotten into your hydraulic system, and also you probably lost some fluid during the exchange. So now would be a great time to do a hydraulic fluid change. And if you need help with that, I've got a video that can help you out right here, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. I'm so happy that I finally got my freshly painted hood back on my 322. I put the decals on yesterday. I think it's looking so good.